This is 5 Minute Men of History, and this is Julius Evola. Julius Evola was an Italian philosopher and painter during the 20th century. He was regarded as being aristocratic, masculine, traditionalist, heroic, and reactionary. Evola was born in Rome in 1898 to a Sicilian family claiming the local title of Baron. Though the status of the Evola family cannot currently be proved, it was without a doubt wealthy enough to be aristocracy and certainly old guard Catholic. He studied engineering as a youth and made excellent grades. However, he did not complete his studies for fear of becoming bourgeoisie. As a teen, he immersed himself in painting and the literature of Oscar Wilde, Friedrich Nietzsche, and Otto Weininger. He served in World War I as an artillery officer on the Asiago Plateau, the same place Ernest Hemingway would serve. Evola would emerge from the war with a very different opinion from Hemingway. Evola believed that mankind is living in the Kali Yuga, a dark age of unleashed materialistic appetites, spiritual oblivion, and disillusion. To counter this, and to call in a primordial rebirth, Evola presented his world of tradition. The core trilogy of Evola's works are generally regarded as Revolt Against the Modern World, Men Among the Ruins, and Ride the Tiger. According to one scholar, Evola's thought can be considered one of the most radically and consistently anti-egalitarian, anti-liberal, and anti-democratic of the 20th century. Evola's work was influential on fascists and neo-fascists, though he himself was never a member of the Italian Fascist Party or the Italian Social Republic, and he openly declared himself an anti-fascist. He regarded his position as that of a sympathetic right-wing intellectual, saw potential in the movement, and wished to reform its error. One of his successes was in regard to the racial laws. His advocacy of a spiritual consideration of race won out in Italy, as opposed to the biological concept popular in Germany. After World War I, Evola took an interest in art, specifically the avant-garde. He was prominent in Filippo Marinetti's Futurist movement and was a leading figure in Dadaism in Italy. In 1922, however, he became disillusioned with these styles when he felt that they were becoming commercialized, and he largely withdrew from art. During the 1920s, he used hallucinogenic drugs extensively and began to explore esotericism and the occult, particularly tantric yoga. Evola would later write that he did not think drugs were necessary as a means of transcendence. By 1927, he and other Italian esotericists had founded the Group, which was attempting to revive the paganism in ancient Rome. At one point, Mussolini asked Evola why he hadn't joined the fascist party proper. Evola replied that the continued existence of the party proved the failure of fascism. After all, if the state had become all and absorbed all lesser allegiances, how could there be such a thing as a party, which, as the word indicates, represents a partial or special interest? Evola consistently and publicly criticized fascism, but has often been wrongly accused of being a fascist himself or a fascist supporter, because he critiqued fascism from the right as opposed to the left. When World War II broke out, he volunteered for military service in order to fight the communists on the Russian front. He was rejected because he had too many detractors in the bureaucracy. After Italy surrendered to the Allies in September 1943, Evola moved to Germany, where he spent the remainder of the Second World War. Here he worked as a researcher on Freemasonry for the SS. Also during this time, it was Evola's custom to walk around the cities during bombing raids in order to better ponder his destiny. During one such raid, in March or April 1945, a shell fragment damaged his spinal cord and he became paralyzed from the waist down, remaining so for the rest of his life. After World War II, Evola wrote Men Among the Ruins and Ride the Tiger, his two most famous works. He would also stand trial in 1951 on the charge of attempting to revive Italian fascism. He was acquitted on the grounds that he had never actually joined the fascist movement. In Ride the Tiger, Evola's last major work, he examined disillusion and subversion in a world in which God was dead. He rejected the possibility of any political or collective revival of tradition due to his belief that the modern world had fallen far into Kali Yuga. Instead of advocating a return to religion, he crafted what he considered an apolitical manual for surviving and ultimately transcending the Kali Yuga. This idea was summed up in the title of the book, The Tantric Metaphor of Riding the Tiger. which consisted of turning things considered negative to spiritual progress, like meat, alcohol, and sex, into means of spiritual transcendence. The process that Evola described involved mastering negative elements as opposed to being mastered by them. For Evola, the word tradition had a meaning very similar to that of truth. The doctrine of the Four Ages, a broad characterization of the attributes of tradition and their manifestations in traditional societies, makes up the first half of Evola's major work, Revolt Against the Modern World. Famed author Hermann Hesse was an admirer of Evola, calling him a very dazzling and interesting, but also very dangerous author. In modern times, Evola has begun gaining attention in Russia, becoming especially popular among monarchists, with the view of an imperial Moscow becoming a third Rome. Internationally, Evola has remained popular among neo-reactionaries, monarchists, fascists, and occultists. His works are even widely available in English on Amazon.com. Evola died unmarried, without children, in June 1974 while living in Rome. His ashes are deposited in a glacier on Mount Rosa between the Italian and Swiss border. This has been 5 Minute Men of History, and this was Julius Evola.